You meet three of the main protagonists and hear the central conflict in Libyan writer Ibrahim al Koni's The Bleeding of the Stone in the first sentence of the book. Evening was coming, he writes, the flaming disk of the sun sinking slowly down from the depths of the sky as it bade farewell, with the threat to return next morning and finish burning what it hadn't burned today. And Asouf plunged his arms into the sands of the wadi to begin his ablutions in readiness for his afternoon prayers. The Bleeding of the Stone tells the story of Asouf, a naive and painfully socially awkward young Tuareg man, and his struggle to preserve the integrity of the desert he loves, even as changing times bring enemies, both foreign and familiar, to his beloved home. Sun, desert sand, humans. It's an age-old conflict. As we will soon see, the sun's beef, if you want to call it that, with the land, which constitutes the Sahara Desert, is millions of years old, playing out in 20,000-year cycles of harsh intimacy and soothing distance, depending on which way the planet tilts. Humankind entered the picture less than 50,000 years ago and quickly sided with the desert against the sun. But the desert is a fickle ally, and as Al Koni documents in intimate detail in his stories, no one knows this better than the humans, plants, and animals who call it home. In this episode of the Mythological Africans podcast, we introduce the Sahara as a geographical landform and reflect on some of the stories that have emerged from its long history. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Mythological Africans podcast, where we read and talk about stories from African mythology and folklore. I am your host, Helen Tunde. Meet the Sahara Desert. 3.6 million square miles, or 9.2 million square kilometers. 8% of the world's landmass. That's close to the size of the entire United States or China. It is the largest hot desert in the world and the third largest overall desert, dwarfed only by the icy cold deserts of the Arctic and the Antarctic. The Sahara's reach is staggering. Its northern end touches the Mediterranean, and its southern end reaches into the grasslands that lead to the Central African rainforest. The Red Sea laps at its eastern border, while the Atlantic Ocean claims its western edge. 10 countries crisscross its surface: Algeria, Chad, Egypt, Libya, Mali, Mauritania, Morocco, Niger, Tunisia, and Sudan. The Sahara is ancient, at least 2 to 3 million years old. By some estimates, it is older, up to 7 million years old. In 2014, scientists modeled climate change in northern Africa and came to the conclusion that the Sahara Desert might be the remnant of a great sea known as Tethys, which 250 million years ago separated the supercontinents of Laurasia in the north and Gondwana in the south. But all continents, even supercontinents, sit on and so are subject to the movements of tectonic plates. Tectonic plates are part of the planet's lithosphere, the hard, rocky section closest to the surface. They, in turn, sit on the planet's asthenosphere. This is a layer of half-melted rock. Earth's asthenosphere moves, pulled along by large convection forces generated by heat moving from Earth's core to its surface. Earth's core, at its center, burns as hot as the surface of the sun. The asthenosphere's movements drag the lithosphere and its tectonic plates along, pushing them together, pulling them apart, taking all they carry with them. And so when the Eurasian plate, on which Laurasia sat, pushed into the African plate, which bore Gondwana, Thetis began to dry up and shrink, eventually becoming what we know as the Mediterranean Sea. The land left behind, exposed to the sun, became dry, habitable land. But that's not the whole story. Every 20,000 years, Earth's position relative to the sun shifts just enough for the amount of sunlight reaching the northern hemisphere to increase. When this happens, the seasonal rainfall patterns grow stronger, resulting in an increase in rain and groundwater. Under these conditions, previously dry land overflows with water. Ravines and craters fill up to become rivers and lakes. Long dormant seeds push down roots and send their hopeful green leaves to greet the sun. Animals and humans come to enjoy the bounty. The desert comes alive. Heavy rainfalls in October of 2024, believed to be driven by climate change, gave the world a preview of this eventuality. During one of such verdant times, many human communities moved into the region. Evidence of their occupation remains to this day. Sefar, the largest cave dweller complex in the world, is found in the Tassili Niger mountain range located in the southeastern section of the Algerian Sahara. In Sefar, you will find roughly 15,000 drawings and engravings of humans, plants, and animals on the walls around the settlement. This is one of the largest and most important collections of prehistoric rock art in the world. Some of the drawings show aquatic and other animals extinct in the Saharan region for at least several thousand years. This is why scientists look to these drawings for information about climate, animal migrations, and the evolution of human life in the area. Earth, tilted on its axis, is ever in motion, however, and so after another 20,000 years, the levels of sunlight reduce and the rains peter out. Away from the oasis where groundwater pushes to the surface to offer emergency aid, most plants and animals die off. The desert relinquishes its hold on vitality, and as Ibrahim al Koni poetically puts it, becomes a landscape haunted by the spirit of nature. The Sahara has seen it all, and the Tuareg are one of the few people alive who remember what the desert has seen. Like most human communities, the Tuareg preserve their memories in stories. But these are not stories that are kept away to be brought out and remembered on special occasions in song and dance. No, the stories and the life-saving knowledge they encode are woven into everyday conversations. That is what makes Ibrahim al Koni's work, The Bleeding of the Stone Amongst Them, so memorable. One minute, you are lost in a layered conversation between people who have mastered the art of the double, triple, and even quadruple entendre. The next, you are cast headlong into a world of sentient desert winds and warring mountains. Consider this folktale told to Asouf, the book's protagonist, by his father. Once, long ago, the desert mountain waged constant war with the desert sands, and the heavenly gods would descend to earth to separate the pair, calming the fire of enmity between them. But no sooner had the gods left the battlefield and the rain stopped pouring down than war would break out once more between the two eternal enemies. One day the gods grew angry in their high heavens and sent down their punishment on the fighters. They froze the mountains in Masak Saftat, and they stopped the persistent advance of the sands on the borders of Masak Malat. Then the sounds found a way to enter the spirit of the gazelles, while the mountains found a way into the spirit of the Wadad. And from that day on, the Wadad was possessed by the spirit of the mountains. But the gazelles and the Wadad don't fight now. That's because God visited a greater disaster on earth, one that fought the two sides at once. Man came to be the enemy of gazelles and Wadad alike. The gods had grown tired of all the silly complaints. Sometimes the sands would rise to make their case to the heavens. It was the mountains, they said, that had started things. And sometimes it was the mountaintops that would go to the gods, complaining of the raids made by the sands. So the gods, in their anger, punished them with a devil called man. They placed the matter in his hands, and he came to live in the wadi between the two. Now, the gods could have a little peace at last, and they've heard no more complaints since. One small story, so many layers. You hear a story of constant transformation as mountain turns to dune under the influence of wind and rain. You hear the fight for pasture between gazelle and wadat, or Barbary sheep, a species of sheep native to northern and western Africa. You hear the story of human arrival and the devastation that wrought over both sheep and gazelle. A closer listen, augmented perhaps with the name of the specific human community and the wadi or valley they moved into, would reveal further details about genealogies, migrations, and shifts in animal populations. One small story, fewer than 300 words. History, ecology, mythology, geology, and more. We'll stop here for the week, but please come back next week for more mythology and folklore from Ibrahim al Koni's The Bleeding of the Stone. Thank you as always for listening.